3 sinister night drives, unexplained horrors revealed in spine-chilling true stories. The clock ticked relentlessly as Sarah gripped the steering wheel, every nerve in her body igniting with a cold panic. Shadows swirled around her aging sedan like ghostly mist. It was the quietest night she'd ever driven home from her night shift at the hospital, the faint hum of her tires on asphalt now an echoing reminder of solitude. But tonight felt different, sinister. It began with a caress of prickle on her skin, the overwhelming sensation of being watched. She shuddered, flicking her eyes to the rearview mirror. Nothing, just darkness. Yet, something lingered, something she couldn't shake. As she turned onto the main street, a flicker intercepted her gaze, a blur that vanished before she could comprehend it. Was it just a trick of the light? Or was it something more? Her heart raced as she fought the urge to slam on the brakes. Panic clawed at her throat, but she pressed on like a moth drawn to a flame, a woman alone, driving her familiar route home. The stillness of the suburban night seemed to swallow her whole, washing away comforting sounds. Cold dread seeped into her bones as she approached an intersection where shadows danced in the corners of her vision. And then she saw it, a fleeting figure, a forgotten local teen, once vibrant, now whispered about among neighbors as one of the vanished. Her breath hitched, weighing her heart down with the weight of unspoken fear. This wasn't just a nightmare, this was real. When she called the police, they brushed off her concerns like dust. Just another night in the suburbs. They didn't understand, but she felt the threat of something darker, something lurking just below the facade of normalcy. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to safeguard her son, Sarah delved into her own investigation. Each night drive unearthed more dread: neighborhood pets disappearing, kids whispering about a dark man that crept in the twilight, lingering just out of sight. The comforting faces of her neighbors twisted into shadows as she connected dots that were meant to remain hidden. Each polite smile she received felt like a malignant grin, warm on the surface but curdled beneath. "Everything's fine," they said, but their eyes betrayed their fear, a flicker of unspoken solidarity against an unspeakable threat. She uncovered murmurings about a local urban legend, dark rites held in secret that invoked dread when the full moon rose. Horror stoked embers of fear deep within her. The delicate threads of suburban life began to fray. Familiar faces morphed into mysterious masks, and whispers accompanied her as she roamed the neighborhoods. Then, one crushing night, her car sputtered, choking on the dark silence trapped within the flickering streetlight above. Alone, she felt her heart race as cold dread gripped her. Laughter echoed from behind, soft and terrible, fading into a chilling stillness. Everything screamed for her to leave, but as frayed nerves tightrope walked between dread and determination, she turned. And there it was, a shadowy figure, gliding from the depths of darkness, and she realized she might not be the only one tangled in this web of terror. What had she unearthed? The night bristled with secrets that were about to ensnare her irrevocably. Her heart thundered in her chest, the sound palpable as she stared into the void before her. The figure, swathed in shadows, seemed to draw near with an unnatural calm, its outlines shifting and blending with the night. Sarah's mind raced, a swirl of memories about the tales she had heard. The missing children, the whispers among neighbors. The laughter. With instinct overriding her dread, she slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching against the asphalt. She didn't look back until she reached the intersection, where the streetlights seemed to pulse with a malevolent glow. But when she did turn to check, the figure was gone, leaving behind an encroaching darkness that felt heavy, almost suffocating. Trembling, sweat pooling in her palms, she drove aimlessly, adrenaline fueling her flight from what? She gripped the wheel, heart racing, searching for answers in the darkness. What was that thing? The laughter rang in her ears, crawling under her skin, peppering her thoughts with paranoia. Was it real? Or was she succumbing to the horrors that crept through the shadows of her mind? Sarah resolved to dig deeper. Alone in her living room that night, she scoured old library archives and local news clippings, her eyes bleeding from the blue glow of the screen. The urban legend was older than she thought. A tale of a pact forged under a blood moon, where desperate townsfolk sacrificed the innocent to keep something far worse at bay. The realization twisted in her stomach. It wasn't just a myth. The faces of her neighbors haunted her, their smiles an eerie mask that concealed a dark reality. Days turned into a blur. Each evening, she drove that cursed route, always looking over her shoulder, hoping to spy the figure. Instead, she found abandoned houses with peeling paint that sighed like ghosts as the wind blew through them. Old trees swayed high above in an appreciation that felt mocking. They knew things. They had witnessed the unspeakable. A week later, just short of midnight, Sarah heard it again, a low, chilling laugh. This time, it came from the woods bordering the neighborhood. The trees loomed like towering giants, their branches twisted and clawing at the night sky. Heart racing, she steeled herself. She couldn't run anymore. If she wanted to protect her son and uncover the truth, she had to confront the shadows. Leaving the safety of her car, she stepped into the cool air. It wrapped around her like a shroud. A gust of wind whispered through the trees, a dissonant melody that seemed to beckon her deeper into the woods. Each step forward was a battle against rising doubt. Was this madness, or was she finally ready to confront the nightmare? As she wandered deeper, illuminated only by a fading flashlight, the laughter grew louder, morphing into disjointed whispers, calling her name. The weight of invisible eyes pressed close, narrowing her focus. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the thicket, gaunt and out of place among the gnarled roots and murky underbrush. It wasn't the shadow from before, but a girl, no older than Sarah's son. Hollow eyes glimmered in the dark, a jarring contrast to the vibrant pink of her shirt. "Help us, they're coming," the girl stammered, choking on the words, her face twisted in terror. Who was she? A victim of the darkness, one of the lost? With her breath trapped in her throat, Sarah's instinct screamed for her to run, yet she remained rooted to the spot, caught between fear and something primal, an urge to save. But what if saving one meant awakening something worse? The laughter echoed again, closer this time, filling her with an icy dread. Did she dare move forward, or was the true horror lurking just behind her? Behind her, shadows shifted and closed in. Would she find the strength to face them? Or would she become just another voice lost to the whispers of the night? The girl's eyes widened in desperation, and Sarah felt the icy grip of fear wrap tighter around her throat. "What did you mean they're coming?" she managed to whisper, desperately searching for courage in the face of sheer terror. The girl stepped closer, her thin frame quaking under the weight of invisible chains, dark hair swaying with the wind, casting fleeting shadows across her face. They take us," the girl replied, her voice trembling. "They get into your head," and then her words staggered like she was fighting against an unseen force. "You have to help us. You can't let them find you." A gust of wind swept through the woods, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. It carried the laughter again, a ghastly echo that seemed to ripple through the very air around her. Each note was a taunt, a cruel reminder that something was always lurking just out of sight, watching, waiting. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, feeling the hollowed emptiness in her chest deepen. "What is this place?" The girl's gaze shifted to the trees, her body coiling like a spring. "We're trapped, they won't let us go. If you keep looking, they will come for you too." Every instinct screamed at Sarah to retreat, to run to the safety of her car, but she was enraptured by the girl's haunting dread. "How do I help you?" she pressed, her heart hammering in her chest. "Listen." The girl's whisper turned urgent, frantic. "When you leave, don't look back. They feed on fear. If you look back, they will know you're afraid. You'll see things you don't want to remember. Just keep going. As soon as the warning left her lips, another laugh ricocheted through the trees, louder and closer than before. Panic surged through Sarah. She tried to reach for the girl, but the shadows slithered closer, and a suffocating darkness blanketed her vision. Sarah! The girl screamed, reaching out, but the world around Sarah shifted, the woods distorting as if the ground itself was breaking apart. Help us! Her voice faded into the night as the laughter escalated, filling Sarah's ears with high-pitched shrieks that it was undeniable now the darkness had weight, it pressed against her skin. Fighting against the urge to flee, Sarah turned, her feet pushing into the ground, straining to escape the sinister pull of the laughter wrapped within the trees. Don't look back. The girl's voice flickered like a candle, fading as Sarah began to run. Branches clawed at her arms, and roots twisted underfoot. Breathing hard, she fought to keep her feet moving, her heart threatening to explode. The laughter spiraled into a cacophony around her, growing louder and shriller, distorting into a symphony of madness. She stumbled into the clearing, the moonlight offering a brief, deceptive safety. But the laughter morphed again, shifting into deranged whispers that spoke her name, just out of reach. Chills raced down her spine. The reality of being hunted tightened around her, she could hear them now. They were close. The darkness slithered behind her, filling the air with the stench of adventure warped into dread. Every hair on her body prickled, and she cursed herself. How had she let curiosity drag her into this nightmare? With a desperate burst of energy, she bolted toward the road, not daring to glance back. I can't let them get me. Not like this. But the woods felt endless, reaching out with claws of mist and shadow. Then, without warning, she reached the exit, her car now just a beacon of frightened hope. She scrambled inside, slamming the door, panting. The night air felt thick, wrapping around her like a seal, refusing to let go. Trembling, she fumbled for the keys, her hands slick with sweat. Heart thudding, she hesitated, suddenly gripped with an overpowering question: what if the girl had been right? What if something worse lingered in the dark? The laughter ripped through her thoughts, and Sarah drove away, weeping in terror for what she had left behind. But as she glanced into the rearview mirror, her world shattered. Staring back at her was the gaunt face of the girl, eyes wide and pleading just before the darkness swallowed her whole. Was she too late to escape the shadows? And were they truly gone? The fear gripped her as shadows began to drift into the headlights behind her, beckoning her back to their fanged embrace, now whispering a promise of something unspeakable waiting just over the next hill. The car's tires screeched against the pavement as Sarah slammed the gas, a primal urge to escape clawing at her insides. The engine roared, drowning out the haunting laughter that echoed in her ears, but the weight of it wrapped around her like barbed wire, refusing to let go. She couldn't shake the image of the girl from her mind, that pleading face buried in shadows, fighting against the rising tide of madness. Sarah's foot pressed harder on the accelerator, the speedometer spiking. But every bend in the road, every flicker of headlights in the distance twisted her gut tighter. Barriers of trees loomed on either side, their dark silhouettes pressing in, as if they were trying to swallow her whole. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. She hesitated, but the urge to call for help was drowned out by the voices curling through the car window, slithering in like smoke. Don't look back, don't look back. Ignoring the overwhelming dread, she snatched her phone and dialed 911. As the phone rang, the laughter returned in full volume, seeping in through the cracks of the window. Sarah, Sarah, it cooed, wrapping around her throat. A familiar voice broke through her panic. 911, what's your emergency? Help. I need help. Please. Before she could finish, the line went dead. The darkness enveloped her like an embrace, and she felt the temperature plummet inside the car. Her breath forming small clouds, she rubbed her arms, trying to stave off the chill. Someone was in the back seat. She twisted in her seat, eyes darting. Nothing. The rearview mirror reflected only the abyss of black behind her. But the whispers were louder now, a mix of desperate cries and pleading moans. They pierced through the thick air, sinking into her mind. They know you're afraid. The image of the girl flashed in her memory. You looked back, didn't you? A whisper resonated through the car. The hairs on the back of her neck rose. Frantic, she whipped her head back around to face the road, her heart pounding against her ribcage. The streetlights flickered as she barreled toward town, the familiar landscape morphing before her eyes. Signs she recognized now appeared twisted and wrong, their letters smeared, their colors leaking like blood. The world around her flickered, fading like a dying bulb. No, no, no. She gasped, knowing she was losing it. Yet, she pressed on, desperation fueling her every heartbeat. Suddenly, the headlights illuminated a shape on the roadside. A figure stood there. Heart racing, she squinted, desperate for clarity. It was another girl, similar to the one she had just seen in the woods. Their gazes locked for a heartbeat, and terror pierced through her soul. "Help us," the girl mouthed, but no sound escaped her lips. "No!" Sarah screamed, the terror surging through her. "I can't help you." She jammed her foot on the brakes, tires screaming as she skidded to a stop. Panic set in, she fumbled for her phone again, but it slipped from her grasp and clattered to the ground, the screen cracking. As she stumbled out of the car, her breath came in ragged gasps. The laughter filled the air again, slithering around her like serpents. She felt it closing in. Shadows crept out from the forest, shapes forming in the darkness, shifting as they approached. Unforgettable eyes bore into her, radiating hunger, hungry for fear. In that flooded moment, clarity struck like lightning. "You didn't listen," a voice echoed among the trees. "Now, you're one of us." But before she could scream, she felt the ground shift beneath her. The earth plunged into blackness. As the laughter erupted and the shadows pooled at her feet, Sarah was left gasping, her surroundings fading. Was it possible that the girl had been her only salvation, and by looking back, she walked straight into their embrace? The fate of others began to swirl around her like a cyclone of screams, and she felt the edges of her consciousness slip away. Darkness engulfed her, and the last thing she saw was those haunting eyes staring back at her, welcoming her home. When the dawn broke, would anyone be left to seek answers about what had happened that night? Or were they doomed to repeat the cycle all over again? The roiling darkness swallowed Sarah whole, leaving nothing but an oppressive silence that felt like a weight pressing on her chest. She could feel the ground beneath her, not solid earth but rather a damp abyss, pulling her in just as the laughter had beckoned. Panic flooded her senses as she attempted to scramble upright, her hands rooting through the unseen muck. "Help!" She screamed into the dark, the sound ricocheting back at her, an echo of her fear. But the only response was more laughter, a thick chorus that cut through the air like glass. Just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, edges of light flickered around her. It was faint at first, a pinprick glowing against the inky blackness. Clenching her fists, she trudged forward, fighting against the pull of terror that sought to drag her back. If she could just reach that light, every step was a battle against despair and shadow. As she approached, the light blossomed, revealing the girl from before, the one on the roadside, her face drawn and pallid, eyes wide with an otherworldly gleam. "Sarah!" the girl cried, though her voice was more a whisper carried by a chilling wind. "You must go back, you don't belong here." "Back?" Sarah stammered. "How? I can't, they're everywhere." "This is their realm," the girl said, struggling against something unseen, her own figure flickering. "You looked back, that was the key. You're trapped with them now." Realization washed over Sarah like ice water. The laughter grew louder, filling the air with a maddening rhythm. It was as if the shadows were dancing, triumphing over her soul while they beckoned for her surrender. "Please, let me go." She reached out towards the girl, but her hand passed through the apparition, sending a cold shiver down her spine. The girl's image wavered, the light dimming around her. With a despairing cry, the girl vanished, swallowed by the dark in an instant, leaving only echoes of her plea behind. "No! Don't leave me!" Sarah fell to her knees, the ground tearing at her skin. The shadows pulsed around her, closing in, their faces morphing into miserable visages that mirrored her own horror. "Join us," they hissed, their breath foul and rancid, a cacophony of desolation that sliced at her resolve. "No!" she shouted, scrambling back, but the earth beneath her quaked violently. She was no longer just a spectator in this nightmare, she was part of it. Shadows latched onto her ankles and wrists, dragging her deeper into the void. Desperation ignited a flicker of strength within her. She couldn't die here, not like this. "Let me go. I want to be yours," she cried, the intensity of her words igniting a fire deep within, chasing away some of the creeping dread. She fought against the darkness, pushing with everything inside her. With a piercing scream, she felt a shattering inside her, thick cords of shadow snapping like brittle twine, light burst forth, blinding and suffocating, enveloping her in a cocoon of warmth. For a heartbeat, she was suspended in the brightness, fully expecting to be torn apart until suddenly, a rush of air erupted around her, sweeping her upward. The shadows shrieked in fury, the echo resounding across the abyss, as she shot upward through the radiant barrier, gasping for breath. When she landed, it was on the cracked pavement of the road once more. Heart pounding, Sarah scrambled to her feet, looking around, wild-eyed. The familiar trees and signs loomed, but there was no laughter, no figures in the darkness. But as she caught her breath, something shifted in the air. A figure emerged from the tree-line, a boy this time, drenched in shadows, his eyes glinting with dreadful purpose. "Welcome back," he said, voice low and mocking. "You didn't really think you escaped, did you?" The ground trembled again beneath her feet, threatening to pull her back into that hellish void. Sarah's breath quickened, the gnawing dread returning in waves. Could she ever truly escape? And why hadn't she seen him before? As dread began to blur the edges of her vision once more, Sarah realized with horror that she wasn't the only one who had looked back. The boy stepped closer, shadows swirling around him like a hungry fog. His smile, if it could be called that, was wide but empty, as if he were grinning at a joke only the dark could hear. Sarah stumbled back, feeling the ground shift beneath her. Fear surged, a primal response urging her to run. But where? "Stay and join us or you'll never be free," he said, his voice dripping with the promise of doom. In his proximity, the air thickened, it pulsed with a menacing vibrancy that seemed to suck the very light from the surrounding trees. "What do you mean?" she gasped, struggling to sound brave even as her limbs trembled traitorously. "What do you want from me?" The boy tilted his head, his eyes glinting like obsidian. "Oh, it's not me you should worry about," he replied, voice smooth as silk, but it carried an undercurrent of sinister glee. "You've been invited to a game of life and death, or more accurately, what comes after death." The shadows danced around her, whispering secrets in fragmented voices, and she felt their chilling tendrils brush against her skin. The laughter from before returned, mocking her, weaving a web of despair that tightened around her throat. It was overwhelming, but she was tired of being afraid. "No!" she yelled, surprising herself with the ferocity. "I want to play your game." A flicker of confusion crossed the boy's face, as if he truly hadn't expected defiance. But then he smirked, and it sent a shiver down her spine. "You can resist all you want, but those who look back are never truly free." She blinked. Hadn't she escaped? Fled from that darkness? Yet the boy stepped back slightly, extending his arm in a strange gesture that felt simultaneously welcoming and hostile. From deep in the woods, the shadows flared, revealing dark figures that surged behind him, twisted, contorted shapes, eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. They were drawn to Sarah, their writhing forms merging and splitting, like a gaggle of hungry wolves. Their laughter became a thunderous chorus, a riot of sinister delight echoing into the night. An icy prickling ran through her. It felt like she was being watched, as if all those terrible eyes were drinking her in, sizing her up as their next target. "Join us," they taunted, their voices a dissonant choir that clawed at her sanity. "You can't escape what you've awakened." "No." Sarah shouted again, pivoting on her heel and sprinting down the road. The asphalt felt alive, gripping at her feet, but she pushed harder, her heart a drum of panicked defiance. Behind her, footsteps echoed like a drumbeat, weaving in and out with the unearthly laughter. Each step carved a frantic rhythm in her mind, but no matter how fast she ran, the shadows seemed to multiply, enveloping her world in an inescapable gloom. Suddenly, she spotted headlights in the distance, flicking on like fragile sparklers in the choking dark. "Help!" she cried out, desperation choking her throat. Raw panic fueled her sprint. Was it a car? Was there hope? The light drew closer, illuminating her path, but as she raced toward it, the shadows surged, swirling around her like a dark storm latching onto her clothes, pulling her back, whispering sweet temptations of surrender. "Join us," they hissed with hungry urgency. The car came into view, but then the headlights dimmed, flickering as if the battery was dying. "No, no. Don't you understand, Sarah?" The boy's voice echoed through the night. "You can never escape, they'll always find you." With a surge of desperation, Sarah lunged toward the bright light, eyes fixed on hope. But as she reached for it, the world tilted violently, shadows dragging her back. "Escape isn't in the cards," he hissed. Just as the light flickered out completely, the darkness closed in, swallowing her scream. When everything went silent again, the boy leaned closer, his eyes shimmering with cruel delight. "But don't worry, the game has only just begun." And in that silence, the lurking dread bore down on her, resting heavily like a predator poised to strike. What would she face next in the dark unsolved corridors of her worst fears? Sarah awoke, gasping, her breath catching in her throat as the crushing weight of darkness enveloped her. She was no longer on the road, no longer pulled toward the flickering light. Instead, she lay amidst the cold dampness of an unknown place, the air thick with a musty odor that stung her nostrils. Disoriented, she pushed herself up, feeling the ground give way slightly beneath her, a soft earth, almost like mud or rot. Her fingers brushed against something slick and wet, and she recoiled, heart racing. The shadows were gone, but the feeling of being hunted lingered, as if the darkness was a living entity, silently laughing at her fragile resolve. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice a trembling echo in the suffocating stillness. Ahead, a sliver of light caught her eye, cutting through the murky gloom. It flickered, almost like a heartbeat, drawing her closer. An instinct pulled at her, the need to make sense of this nightmarish reality, to claw her way back to safety. As she crawled toward the light, dread gnawed at her gut. Each inch moved felt heavy, as if gravity itself conspired against her. She could swear the very shadows whispered taunts in her ear, or maybe it was just the wind, a sickly, soft hum that wrapped around her like a shroud, urging her to turn back. No. This was no time for cowardice. She reached the source of the light, a door, ancient-looking, with grooves and textures carved into the wood that resembled twisting vines, creeping toward her like grasping fingers. It stood slightly ajar, light spilling out in a golden pool that invited her in. What if it's a trap? A part of her screamed. Yet, another part, the one that felt the incessant itch of shadows stalking her, pushed her forward. She took a deep breath, heart pounding loudly against her ribcage, and stepped through the threshold. The room opened up into a bizarre hall of mirrors, each reflection twisted and wrong, a distorted version of her own terrified face staring back. Flickering candlelight held the room in a spectral glow, the flames dancing in rhythm to the pulse of her anxiety. "Welcome, Sarah," a voice cooed, smooth as silk but underlined with icy malice. The boy from before stepped from the darkness, now clad in a form more elegant and sinister. "You found us," he said, his grin wider than ever. "This is where our game truly begins." Sarah felt her heart race, thudding in her ears. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, struggling to find her voice among the echoes of her fear. "To play," he replied casually, gesturing to the mirrors around them. "You must face your reflections and discover their truths. Flee from them, and you will know despair. Embrace them, and you might find a way out." The shadows writhed at the edges of her vision, gnawing at her resolve. Could these mirrors really reflect her deepest fears? The thought sent a cold tremor through her. Why can't I just leave? She pressed, anger mingling with her dread. Because you saw me once. You will never escape the truth you've touched, he replied, watching her with an expression infused with dark glee. In that moment, she understood, he wasn't just a boy coming to play. He represented every fear she'd buried, every regret she couldn't outrun. The haunting laughter echoed around her, a symphony of mockery and menace. No! She shouted, turning her back on the swirling reflections. I refuse to play. But as she turned, the mirrors shattered, splintering her defiance like fragile glass fragments flying toward her, embedding in the walls of her mind, dragging memories around her like a noose. As the boys' laughter filled the collapsing room, Sarah felt the ground shift again beneath her. The air thickened, the shadows reached for her, and the sound of muffled whispers enveloped her like a clammy blanket. You can't run from yourself. Before she could react, everything went black, and the last sensation she felt was the chilling awareness that the game had only just commenced. In the abyss, a voice whispered low, a sinister promise resonating in the silence. What will you choose, Sarah? The path of pain or the path of truth? And as dread sank its claws into her heart, the question loomed: what awaited her in the depths of her own darkness? The darkness pressed in, cold and suffocating. Sarah's mind was a jumbled mess, each thought a splintered mirror shard, reflecting back the torment she had tried to forget. She floated in a sea of nothing, her body suspended between fear and the quiet whisper of despair. Suddenly, she was jerked forward, as if pulled by unseen hands. The ground rushed up to meet her, slamming her against something solid. Pain radiated through her body, sharp and blistering. The air crackled as she gasped for breath, the heavy silence roaring in her ears. Get up, her own mind urged, a frantic mantra in the chaos. You have to get up. With trembling limbs, Sarah pushed herself to her feet. She blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the dim surroundings. The fractured echoes of the boys' laughter still hummed, a haunting melody that reverberated within her core. As her eyes cleared, she found herself in a narrow corridor. The walls pulsed, alive with dark patterns that twisted and writhed, as if the very stones were whispering their secrets. The shadowy figures flickered at the edge of her vision, always just out of focus, yet dreadfully familiar. Find the truth, a voice floated from nowhere, wrapping around her like a cold embrace. Embrace it, Sarah. No! She shouted, defiance surging through her. More than anything, she wanted to run, but where would she go? Each step felt like stepping deeper into a pit, a grave filled with the weight of her own guilt and fear. She took a tentative step forward, then another. The shadows shifted, closing in like a dark cloud. Pain shot through her again, memories tumbling into her mind, moments of betrayal, lost love, the faces of those she had wronged flooding her thoughts. Face them, the voice hissed, coaxing. They're waiting for you. The floor beneath her buckled slightly, and the corridor stretched endlessly before her. Each breath felt heavier, each heartbeat echoing loudly like a war drum. She could hear a faint whisper of a name, hers, mixing with the taunts of the boy. Was it a game? Or was it punishment? Suddenly, a mirror appeared on the right, the surface smooth and clear. Hesitantly, Sarah approached, drawn in by the reflection of herself that stared back with hollow eyes. Her face was a grotesque mask of anguish, twisted by the torment she had tried so hard to hide. Look deeper, the voice urged, sharper now. What do you see? She leaned in, heart pounding. With each blink, the reflection shifted, showing her moments from her past. The laughter of friends now turned to shrieks of betrayal. The warmth of her childhood home melted into the sterile feel of rejection. She saw her choices, every misstep that led her here, glittering like poison jewels in the darkness. No! Sarah screamed, stumbling back as tears streamed down her face. It's not me. I'm not that person. But the darkness sneered, coiling around her, tightening like a serpent. Every truth has a cost, dear Sarah. The corridor twisted again, forming an endless loop around her. She felt her legs buckle, the weight of her own truths dragging her down into the abyss. The shadows danced closer, their laughter mingling with her sobs, a taunting symphony of her failures, but then, amidst the cacophony, something flickered, a glimmer of light ahead. Was there hope? Or was it another cruel ruse of the boy? Summoning her last reserves of strength, Sarah staggered towards it, driven by the instinct to escape this torturous nightmare. As she reached the light, its warmth washed over her, promising refuge. But just as she was about to cross the threshold, a cold grip wrapped around her ankle, pulling her down. No! You can't leave yet, the boy's voice echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. You have not revealed your final truth. With a surge of panic, Sarah twisted and clawed at the grip, desperation fueling her fight against the shadows. There was no turning back now, she had to confront whatever lay ahead, no matter how dreadful. The boy's laughter echoed, filling the air with foggy mirth as she began to realize a grave revelation. A choice was yet to be made. What sacrifice would she endure to finally break free? And as the crushing reality sank in, the question formed, hanging in the air like a heavy fog: would she dare to face the final reflection that would define her fate? The grip tightened, icy fingers digging deeper into her flesh. Sarah gasped, twisting her ankle in a futile attempt to break free. Panic surged through her, pumping like a wild beast in her chest. The shadows, once mere observers, now screamed with glee, feeding off her terror. Let go! She cried, her voice strangled and frail. The boy's laughter wrapped around her, mocking her desperation. He was the embodiment of her fears, the keeper of her secrets. Reveal it, Sarah, he taunted, his whisper swirling like smoke in the air. Your final truth. It's time to let it out. The light flickered, retreating just out of reach, leaving her cloaked in darkness. She felt nauseous, the corridor seemed to pulse around her, an organic beast closing in. The walls weren't just stone, they were flesh, breathing, alive, and hungry. What was she to face? The memories chased each other, swirling like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind. A choice, the boy had said. What choice? Was it the sacrifice of her freedom, or perhaps, something darker? Make the choice, and the grip will release you, he replied, a scheming delight threading his tone. Frozen in fear, Sarah relived every moment she tried to escape. The night her decisions shattered lives, the faces of friends turned enemies. The image of her sister danced before her, eyes full of disappointment, a soul flickered into darkness thanks to her indifference. Pressure mounted in her chest, ache of regret pulsed into being. No, she breathed, the horror settling in. Her sister's smile twisted away, morphing into the laughter that haunted her nights. Blinded by self-preservation, Sarah had sacrificed her family for fleeting joys. Guilt crashed over her like a tidal wave. Face it. The boy commanded, his voice piercing in its insistence. And in that instant, the walls closed in, a reminder that there was nowhere left to hide. Heat rose in her cheeks, tears streaming as she struggled against his grip. No. I can't choose. He yelled, shaking her. The shadows writhing around them surged with hungry anticipation, then, from somewhere deep within, a flicker of resolve ignited. She had played the coward for far too long. It was time to face the truth or be consumed by it. What if revealing her darkness was the only way to find the light? Fine. She gasped, letting the words tumble out like an avalanche, heavy and urgent. I did hurt her. I chose my wants over my own blood. I can't take it back. I'm a coward. I ran away when I should have fought. I left her alone, I left them all. The shadows recoiled as her voice echoed off the walls, a surge of power rushing through her. The boy faltered, surprised by the intensity of her confession. His grip weakened. Very good, Sarah, he cooed, a new curiosity present. Now tell me. Tell you what? She panted, daring to meet his gaze, the thrill coursing through her. Tell me why you really let them go. Chills raced down her spine. An unspoken truth lingered in the air. Deep down, she feared that revealing the final secret might unravel her completely, stretching her mind like taut wire ready to snap. The grip loosened significantly now, confidence filling the chasm of dread. They're gone. She shouted angrily, channeling her fear. I lost them. And maybe I didn't really care enough to fight for them. Just as realization dawned, mocking laughter erupted from the shadows, merging into a chorus of anguished cries. A voice, raspy and old, broke through. Ignoring your truths only deepens the abyss, child. Flee, and you'll find them again, or you'll lose yourself entirely. As the floor shook beneath her, she stumbled and grasped for the wall, heart pounding. The choice loomed in the darkness before her, pulsing with sinister intent. Would she grasp that truth and break free? Or would she fall deeper into the void, lost among the echoes of what she had abandoned forever? With the boy watching, Sarah clenched her fists, breath coming in rapid bursts. The battle wasn't over yet, it had only just begun. Sarah crashed through the gnarled thicket of her own turmoil. Clarity flickered like a faulty bulb overhead. She was stuck in this tangled maze of her past, shadows swirling with each step, suffocating her resolve. Yet with every moment, every harsh breath, she gripped the fragile thread of courage. Just then, the boy stepped forward, encased in shadows. His smile rocked like a pendulum between sinister and inviting. You stand at the precipice, Sarah. Face your truth, embrace your dark memories, or remain trapped forever. The air thickened as memories cascaded around her, specters of friends whose faces faded into fleeting joys, moments of laughter that turned to whispers of betrayal. Her sister's face carved its way to the forefront, wide eyes full of hurt. Sarah remembered turning away, choosing selfish desires over familial bonds. Face it. The boy urged, his voice both hollow and enticing. The shadows deepened, feeding off her fear, becoming a ravenous beast. Despite the dread clawing at her sanity, she felt the spark of her long-buried kindness roaring to life. No! She screamed, the echoes bouncing off the walls of her shattered psyche. Tears streamed down her face, the raw fear of judgment weighed heavily. I hurt her, but I didn't know. Truth poured like molten lava from her lips, searing but lucid. I didn't protect her, chase thrills while she suffered. I wanted the freedom to live without constraints, and I left her with burdens that crushed her spirit. With those words, the shadows recoiled, their grip slackening like a child parting from an adult's hand. It was a moment of release, raw, liberating, terrifying. Very good, Sarah, the boy murmured, curiosity haunting his tone. But do you realize there's a deeper truth? There's something else buried there. A chill swept through her. The shadows writhed, eager for her to falter. What else could I possibly reveal? I can't take back what I chose. The shadows laughed, a cacophony of despair and sorrow. That's just it, isn't it? You've always run from what you've chosen, hiding from the very truths you forged. No. I didn't run away from them, but the realization quickly crashed down. She had kept running, evading every consequence that had come from her choices. Stripping herself of connection, she had buried the relationships that mattered most. With alarms blaring inside her, she summoned the courage once more. Fine. I ran. I buried the pain deep because facing it felt insurmountable. I deceived myself into believing I didn't need them. Interesting, the boy mused, a smirk playing on his lips. He moved closer, shadows swirling protectively around him. But do you truly wish to be free? Or is the darkness a comfort you've come to know? The question pierced through the fog of despair. Did she cling to this darkness? The boy's words rattled her, but from somewhere deeper, a voice echoed back, a whisper of hope, a longing for the light. I want to let go. I want to live again. She shouted, her voice ringing through the chamber, igniting a spark within. The shadows snarled in protest as her conviction heated the air around her. Then embrace the last truth. The boy taunted, leaning closer, eyes glimmering with malevolence. It's time to let it all go. The past, the pain, all of it. But will you trust yourself to break free? Yes. She shouted, each word carving more strength into her resolve. In that instant, she felt a rush of warmth enshrouding her, pulling away the darkness that threatened to consume her. Suddenly, the corridor shifted, walls twisted, breathing life itself. The boy's expression morphed from mockery to something resembling indignation. You think you can simply walk away? I know I can. Sarah countered, the echo of her determination rippling through the air. As she powered forward, the shadows found themselves being pushed back, unraveling like threads beneath her will. The light at the end of the corridor became vivid and inviting. Each step took her closer to freedom. The boy screeched, his laughter melting into anguished cries as she barreled toward the light. With a final surge of energy, she reached forward and tore through the barrier. The brilliance enveloped her, a warm embrace that washed away the cold grip of the past. She gasped as sunlight hit her face, the chill of the night replaced by warmth and vibrancy. Sarah blinked in disbelief. She was standing in her driveway, the fading darkness of night wrapping gently around her. The world felt vibrant with life. She could hear laughter in the distance, the sound of children playing. The faces of those she had lost lingered in her mind, carved with pain but now held wisdom. She would honor them by living, embracing connections, and breaking free from her self-imposed chains. As the sun began to rise, Sarah smiled at the horizon with hope glowing in her heart. The darkness may have tried to take everything from her, but she had fought back. She had seen her truth and emerged stronger. With her heartbeat steady and resolute, she stepped forward into the light, ready to begin anew. And with that, she whispered a promise to herself: never again would she look back. Now, this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on what's coming next.